I was 8 months into a 12-month overseas deployment when I got the email. No call, no video chat, not even a handwritten letter. Just a cold, 2-line message sitting in my inbox at 3:17 a.m. Afghanistan time. I'm done. The divorce papers are on the way. Don't bother replying. That was it. No explanation, no context, just silence that echoed louder than any firefight I'd been through. My hands trembled as I reread it. I was surrounded by brothers in arms, but I felt like I was falling alone into a void I didn't see coming. I hadn't even known we were having problems. She'd sent me love letters last month. I'd saved everyone. Now I sat in a sand-filled outpost halfway across the world trying to wrap my head around the fact that my wife, the woman I trusted with my heart, my home, and my future, had just pulled the pin and walked away. I wanted to believe it was a mistake. Some kind of breakdown. But within 48 hours, the Real bomb dropped. I tried to log into our joint account to send money for a local kids' medical supplies project I was part of, and found the balance at zero. Not $1. She'd drained everything. Savings, emergency fund, deployment bonus, all of it. $28,000. Gone. I contacted the bank, but of course, since she was a co-owner, there was nothing they could do. Legally, she had every right. Morally, she had none. I reported it to my CO and tried to stay focused, but the betrayal burned hotter than any desert sun. I barely slept. I kept playing it back in my head, our last phone call, where she said how proud she was. The photo she sent in a red dress, saying she missed me. The plans we had for when I got home. We were supposed to travel. Start trying for kids. She even talked about remodeling the kitchen. Lies. All of it. And while I was dodging bullets and sleeping on cots, she was probably already with someone else, spending my hard-earned deployment pay on wine nights and hotel suites. When I reached out to her best friend, hoping for some clue, she hesitated. I probably shouldn't be telling you this, she whispered, but she's been seeing someone else. Your coworker. Dylan. From the office. I went cold. Dylan, my subordinate. My friend. The guy I helped get promoted before I shipped out. The guy who house sat for us the first month I was gone. I trusted him around my wife, my home, my life. And he stabbed me in the back without blinking. That was the day something inside me shifted. The pain didn't go away, but it evolved. It sharpened. I stopped grieving and started planning. Not impulsive, messy revenge. No. I wanted something clean. Controlled. I wanted to come back not broken, but better. I wasn't going to just survive this. I was going to ruin the fairy tale they'd built on my ashes. But I still had 4 months left in country. And every day, I used that time wisely. I started reading books on finance, legal strategy, emotional manipulation, workplace psychology. I wanted to understand how people like Dylan and my wife thought. What they expected. What they feared. And when I wasn't on missions, I was planning, writing it all down, refining every step. My friends noticed the change. I wasn't withdrawn anymore, I was focused. Calculated. I was rebuilding the man they tried to destroy. And when my feet hit U.S. soil again, I wasn't just home. I was ready for war. I didn't call her. I didn't tell anyone I'd returned, not even my closest buddies. I needed silence. An element of surprise. I went straight to my lawyer and filed a response to her divorce filing with evidence of her infidelity, gathered through screenshots her best friend had sent, social media posts she thought I'd never see, and receipts she left carelessly in our shared email. California's no-fault divorce law didn't care much about cheating, but the financial exploitation, that was different. Especially when we added in the element of marital funds being used for an affair. Then I got a new job, back at the same company, but in a higher department. Corporate level. What Dylan didn't know was that during my deployment, I'd earned online certifications, taken leadership courses, and networked like hell. A friend from the company tipped me off to a senior opening, and I landed it within 2 weeks. I didn't walk back into the office as his buddy, I came in as his boss's boss. And when Dylan walked into that first Monday morning meeting and saw me sitting at the head of the table, his face drained of every ounce of color. I didn't even flinch. I simply said, "Welcome back to work, Dylan. I'm excited to see what you've been up to in my absence." He stammered something about a promotion review. I smiled. "Yes, we'll be having a very thorough performance audit. Don't worry. I've already requested everything from HR." I could see him sweating. But that was just the beginning. I spent the next few weeks reviewing every email, every project, every detail he touched while I was gone. Turns out, Dylan wasn't just unethical in his personal life, he was lazy, sloppy, and took credit for other people's work. I documented it all, built a paper trail, and handed it to HR. Then I recommended termination. Not immediately, oh no. I made him sweat. Put him on probation. Gave him performance improvement plans stacked with unrealistic goals. All while making sure everyone knew he'd been sleeping with a deployed soldier's wife. When the pink slip finally hit his desk, it was delivered with corporate HR and security waiting to walk him out. I didn't have to say a word. I just watched him pack his things in silence while our coworkers gave him the same coldness he once offered me. That was the first time I actually felt a flicker of peace return to my chest. But I wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. After Dylan was walked out, people started whispering. Some offered tight smiles when they passed me in the hallway. Others sent quiet emails saying how glad they were he was gone, that he'd made the workplace miserable. I didn't respond. I wasn't interested in being the hero of the office. I wasn't doing this for them. This was personal. And now that Dylan was out of the picture, it was time to turn my attention to someone else, the woman who had emptied my bank account while I slept on cots under mortar fire. She hadn't changed her last name. That made the paperwork easier. But she had moved to a swanky high-rise downtown. I recognized the view from a few pictures she posted on a lockdown social account. A friend of a friend gave me access. She was living in luxury, paid for with money I earned getting shot at. There were spa visits, expensive dinners, rooftop parties. She'd post cryptic quotes like "letting go is the real glow up" and "finally living for me." It was like she was trying to rewrite the story of her betrayal into some kind of feminist reawakening. I let her keep writing that fairy tale, because I was about to burn the last few chapters right off the page. I sent her a formal letter from my lawyer requesting a financial audit and reconciliation of joint assets. No warning. No explanation. Just a cold, clean request demanding documentation. She ignored it. So we served her at her apartment, with a court summons and a subpoena for financial records. Suddenly she was all over my inbox, asking why I was doing this, begging to talk things through, accusing me of dragging her through the mud. I didn't reply. I let my attorney handle it with the same robotic tone she'd used in that email from 8 months ago. At the hearing, she tried to play the victim. She told the judge she'd only taken what was hers, that the account was technically joint and she didn't know it would hurt me. She teared up. But her tears dried real fast when my lawyer presented a detailed report of her spending: hotels, dinners for two, gifts, luxury items, and payments to someone listed under the alias DJ. We had evidence linking DJ to Dylan. She looked like she'd swallowed glass. The judge wasn't impressed. And while the court couldn't undo everything, it did rule in my favor for restitution on misused funds. She owed me nearly 20 grand, plus interest. But I wasn't finished. Not with her. I found out she'd recently started her own wellness brand. She was selling coaching sessions online, claiming to help women reclaim their power after toxic relationships. The irony was so thick it choked. I sent a quiet, anonymous tip to a few watchdog groups about her unlicensed therapy claims and false credentials. Within a month, her Instagram page vanished. Her Shopify store went dark. She posted a story saying she was taking a break for mental health. Translation: she got caught. I didn't care if people knew I was behind it or not. This wasn't about humiliation, it was about balance. She tilted the world so hard in her favor that I nearly drowned under it. All I wanted was to make things level again. So I kept going. I used my new position at work to start a mentorship program for returning veterans. I knew how brutal it was coming home to nothing. I couldn't change my past, but I could make sure no one else got blindsided like I did. We paired returning service members with financial advisors, legal coaches, and career counselors. HR ate it up. The board loved the optics. And me? I finally started sleeping through the night again. A few months later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. It was hers. Inside was a folded piece of paper and a cashier's check for half the money she owed. No note. No apology. Just a check. I deposited it the same day and shredded the letter. I didn't need closure. She didn't deserve to speak anymore. The funny thing is, people kept telling me I was strong, that I'd handled it with dignity. But they didn't see the nights I spent staring at the ceiling, wondering how long I'd been blind. They didn't hear the rage in my thoughts or the hollow in my chest. They just saw the part where I survived. But the truth is, I didn't just survive, I changed. The old me would have forgiven. The old me would have sent her money if she said she needed it. That man is buried somewhere in the Afghan desert under 8 feet of dust and betrayal. Now I keep my circle small. I keep my accounts separate. And I trust slowly, if at all. But for the first time in a long time, I feel clean. I feel like I clawed my way out of something dark and came back sharper than ever. Not bitter, just clear-eyed. And ready. Because as much as this started as a story about betrayal, it became something else entirely. It became the story of how I took everything they thought they destroyed, and turned it into something stronger. Months passed, and the silence became its own kind of healing. No more late-night phone calls. No more phantom notifications. I started enjoying the quiet, the peace that came when no one was trying to manipulate my emotions or gaslight me into thinking I was the problem. My therapist once said betrayal doesn't just break trust, it rewires your brain. And mine had gone through a hard reset. What they didn't expect was that I'd come out of it smarter, colder, and absolutely immune to guilt trips. One afternoon, I was in a board meeting when I got an email from an old coworker I hadn't heard from since before the deployment. He kept it short. Dylan's trying to sue the company for wrongful termination. Says you had it out for him personally. Thought you should know. I didn't even flinch. Of course Dylan couldn't let it go. Men like him never could. Always the victim, never the villain. I sent the message straight to our legal department. They already had documentation from HR, including employee complaints and performance evaluations. All by the book. All airtight. I didn't have to say a word. They shut it down within a week, and I heard later he'd burned through most of his savings on legal fees. It was poetic, really. He had climbed over me to sneak into my life, stolen what wasn't his, and expected to walk away clean. But now, everything he touched turned to ash. He tried getting hired in our industry again, no luck. Word gets around, especially when the HR departments all belong to the same networking groups. One background check, and he was done. Meanwhile, my own life was evolving. I started dating again, cautiously. I wasn't looking for love, I was looking for connection. Someone honest. Someone who asked real questions and didn't talk in Instagram quotes. I met Ava at a local fundraiser for veterans housing. She wasn't flashy. No rehearsed lines or pity in her voice when I told her about my past. She just listened. Really listened. We started seeing each other casually, coffee dates, bookstore hangouts, dinners where conversation didn't feel like a competition. For the first time, I wasn't looking for red flags, I was looking for reasons to stay. One night, she asked me if I hated my ex. I thought about it. Not a knee-jerk answer, but really thought. Did I? At one point, yes. I hated how easily she discarded me. I hated how she twisted the narrative to justify cheating. I hated that she used me as a stepping stone to her fake lifestyle of self-empowerment. But now? I couldn't be bothered. Hating her would have meant giving her space in my head, and I'd already rented her enough of it. I just said, she taught me what to never ignore again, and left it at that. Ava didn't push. She just nodded. That meant more to me than any hollow apology ever could. Later that month, I was invited to speak at a military-to-civilian transition panel. I almost declined. I wasn't some inspirational figure. I'd just survived. But the organizer insisted, and I figured, if nothing else, someone out there might need to hear the truth. So I stood in front of 50 men and women who were about to walk back into civilian life, and I told them everything. Not the polished version. The raw one. About betrayal. About coming home to nothing. About building again from scratch. I didn't sugarcoat a damn thing. And when I finished, a guy in the back raised his hand and said, "So what do you do when someone steals your life while you're away?" I looked him in the eye and said, "You don't ask for it back. You build a better one and let them choke on what they lost." It wasn't about being a badass. It wasn't about revenge porn or ego. It was about reclaiming power without lowering yourself to their level. Because the most satisfying revenge isn't watching them suffer, it's watching yourself thrive in a world they're no longer allowed to touch. A few weeks later, I ran into my ex. Not planned. I was grabbing coffee with Ava when she walked in, alone. No glam makeup. No designer bag. She looked smaller, somehow, like a version of herself that had deflated. She locked eyes with me for a second and froze. Then looked at Ava. Then back at me. I just gave her a polite nod, nothing more. She turned around and walked out without ordering. That told me everything I needed to know. She saw that I'd rebuilt. She saw that I hadn't just survived, I'd upgraded. And she couldn't stand it. Ava asked, "Was that her?" I said, "Used to be." She smiled. "She's not anymore." And she was right. The woman I once thought I'd spend forever with was just a chapter now, a cautionary tale in a book that had gotten a lot more interesting after she left the story. A year after I stepped back onto American soil, I stood on the rooftop of my new apartment overlooking the city skyline. It wasn't a penthouse. It wasn't even particularly large. But it was mine. Paid for, earned, and filled with peace. No ghosts. No hidden agendas. No one else's name on the lease. Just clean space and a clear mind. Funny thing about betrayal, it burns everything down, but it also forces you to look at the ashes and decide what matters. I could have stayed angry. I could have spent every minute chasing payback, throwing gasoline on bridges, and making sure everyone who hurt me stayed bleeding. But I didn't. I chose to build. Slowly. Quietly. Relentlessly. After my talk at that panel, more veterans reached out. Some just needed to vent. Others needed jobs. A few just wanted someone who wouldn't feed them shallow inspiration. I made time for all of them. Not because I needed to be the good guy, but because I remembered what it felt like to come home and find your world gone. If I could hand someone else a flashlight in that kind of darkness, then maybe it meant something. Maybe my hell wasn't wasted. Ava and I didn't rush into anything. We didn't need labels or fireworks. Just presence. She taught me that healing doesn't come in grand gestures, it comes in the quiet consistency of someone who shows up, who listens, who doesn't flinch when you talk about the ugly parts. She never asked me to be whole. Just honest. One night, I told her the full story. From the moment I opened that email to the day I watched Dylan get walked out. She didn't interrupt. When I was done, she said, "You turned pain into precision. Most people can't even crawl out of it." That stayed with me. And yet, even now, there are still moments that sneak up on me. A certain smell. A song. A photo buried deep in a forgotten folder. Sometimes I catch myself remembering how much I loved my ex, how much I trusted her. And for a split second, I grieve the version of me that didn't know what betrayal tasted like. But that version of me was naive. He believed love alone could protect him. He didn't know that loyalty is a choice people make every day, not a guarantee they carry in their pocket. I don't hate that version of me. I just buried him with honor and walked away stronger. Dylan faded into obscurity. Last I heard, he was freelancing under a fake name. Couldn't hold a stable job. Couldn't rebuild his reputation. I didn't follow him. Didn't stalk his downfall. That's the thing about true revenge, you don't need to witness it. You just need to know you're living a life they can't touch. As for my ex, she sent one final email. No subject line. No apology. Just a single sentence, "I hope you're doing okay." I read it, smiled, and archived it. Didn't even reply. Her words no longer had power. I'd learned that closure isn't something you get from other people. It's something you give yourself when you stop expecting decency from those who never had it to begin with. Now, I wake up early. I work hard. I keep my circle small and my boundaries firm. I've got new goals, real estate investments, publishing a book about veteran reintegration, maybe even starting a podcast. Not for fame. Just for impact. The kind that echoes louder than revenge ever could. I still keep the deployment photo in my wallet, the one from that outpost before everything fell apart. Not because I missed that life, but because it reminds me who I became when I had nothing left. The man in that photo had no idea he was about to be gutted. But he survived anyway. And not just survived, he rebuilt brick by brick until the foundation was fireproof. Some people think revenge is about hurting the people who hurt you. But that's small. Temporary. Real revenge is living so far above them that they don't even register on your radar anymore. It's building a life where you never have to look back, because forward is just that much better. That's my story. Not a fairy tale. Not a sob story either. Just the truth. Raw. Earned. Unapologetically mine. And if someone out there is going through their own version of betrayal, sitting in a dark room wondering how it all fell apart, I hope they know this. You don't have to get even. You just have to get free.